Hey, hello again there, folks. Video entry number 6 in my preparing to teach in Catholic schools education course from York University's education modules. This video response is going to be centered on the topic of identifying Catholic identity and how to bolster this identity within our classrooms and schools. The task was to research some ideas that could accomplish this goal. Though I think I'm going to be a bit more personal, maybe a bit more stream of consciousness with this video, because I definitely have a couple ideas in terms of this subject. Personally, I think it all starts with me and others, the Catholic classroom teacher. I think the best way to bolster a sense of meaningful Catholic identity in our students' lives is to be that role model, serve as that exemplar. Pardon me. Yeah, serve as that exemplar, serve as that role model in the classroom. Meaningfully integrate faith into the classroom and don't tokenize it. So one such strategy I have for this is I'll usually find a quote from scripture or the Gospels, and one that relates intimately, in my opinion, to the theme or the main idea of the daily lesson that I'm going to take on. For instance, in a recent novel study of Frankenstein, a theme that we looked at in relation to the novel was the dangers of playing God, or the idea of a mortal person taking the power to create life or take life away into their own hands. Theme in a lot of literature, but it's also very much echoed in the Bible and the Ten Commandments. So while discussing that theme, I chose three excerpts from the Bible and used them into a fashion which I call Quote of the Day, in which I will put the quote on the board at the hook of my lesson, and first thing before jumping into it, I'll have my students read it over and unpack the significance and try to connect it to either the learning that they've already taken on the day before, or anticipate what kind of themes or messages or big ideas we're going to be grappling with today. So for example, looking at the Ten Commandments specifically, that one shall not make false idols and or bow down and worship them. I use that to compare it to Victor's ambition and his self-worship and his worship and his pursuit of scientific achievement in Frankenstein, and had students unpack, if Victor if he had read these commandments, would he be following through with these actions? Similar, I found an excerpt from the second letter to Timothy from St. Paul that dealt explicitly with the theme of God. And while there was days certainly where my students were kind of looking at me like, Mr. McDonald, what's going on? What's with all these Bible quotes? They began to see that these themes in the novels that we were reading in class were certainly echoed in the scripture in the Bible, and we're able to connect that to what we were learning. So that's just one small way to bolster that Catholic identity. A second way that I feel that you can do it at a school-wide level rather than just an individual classroom learning activity, such as the one I just described with my quote of the day lessons, or lesson hooks more rather, is just, again, once again, be that role model, be that leader, and take it upon yourself to start some initiatives. Tap into the students' passion for social justice and activism. Use meaningful student inquiry and formative assessment to really find what issues are at the heart of your students' experience. What inequalities have they identified in society or their communities? And then once those are identified, mobilize your students to do good. Challenge them, incentivize them even to go out into their community and be that good Catholic, to be that good neighbor, to lend that hand to those less fortunate than them. And you know what? Don't be afraid to address these issues in the classroom as well, because they can create that spark. They can create that spark that eventually, if you bolster it, with your mentorship, can grow into that flame, that Catholic spirit for social justice and doing good in the world. I just mentioned it in my previous video, but one such fashion I was able to implement a strategy like this at a school-wide level was during my anime and gaming club's charity movie event, in which each of my students came after school to watch a 2-hour anime movie. It was from the Naruto series, but rather than pay admission, you were granted an admission ticket by donating 2 or more non-perishable food items. And I stress more because each meeting leading up to this charity movie event, I was challenging my students. I was saying, how many can you afford? How many can you afford to give away with your privilege? What position is your family in to, donate these charity or these food items to charity? And sure enough, our club was able to donate nearly 60 cans of non-perishable food items to our local charities, including St. Patrick's Parish in Brampton. And you know what? I think my students certainly connected this with not just their school community and their love of video gaming, but their faith as well. Many of them openly discuss that, you know what, if I can afford an Xbox One or a PlayStation 4, which is upwards of $500, and I can afford, a new video game every month, which is again upwards $80, $90, then I can certainly afford to give away 4 or 5 cans of spaghetti to those in need, or to give some canned vegetables or canned soups to those who are less fortunate, who let alone not can afford a PlayStation for Christmas, but can't even afford to put food on the table. And when I served as an exemplar, and I, was reiterating that message and bringing in cans upon cans just to start the food drive, they took notice. They saw, hey, Mr. McDonald, wow, he's practicing what he's preaching. He's donating that food. He's a student. He's not exactly swimming in cash, but he's doing what he can. And when they saw that, I think my students did what they could. And I was overwhelmingly happy with the turnout that I got for my charity movie night. Like I said, nearly 70 cans of non-perishables donated. And we all had a great night too, to boot. We were supervised. We had 2 or 3 teacher volunteers who were again serving in that leadership and mentorship role. And the students, I think, really benefited a lot from it. Those are just some small steps to bolster a Catholic identity, because I think it's formed over your entire life. It's, in my opinion, very difficult to, take on the Catholic mantle, take on the challenges of Catholic faith, and fully realize them in a week or even a year. But if you're sustained and you're committed to these virtues, committed to Christian giving, committed to Christian living and learning and loving, then, I think great things are sure to follow. The Lord will reward those who give upon themselves and do more than they can to do all that they can. And I believe me, at least in my experience, when an educator does this, students take notice and they follow in their footsteps. That concludes my video on terms of identifying Catholic identity and how to bolster it within one's students in the classroom and the school-wide community. I hope you enjoyed watching. Have a great blessed night, everyone, okay? Cheers. See you soon. Bye-bye now.